Today we're going to talk about OnlyFans. These OnlyFans can fan the flames of Twitter's burning. This is a serious topic, so stop joking around. And obviously I need to fix this table. It's still wobbly where the big case broke it. Anyway, you know what's actually responsible for the cooling inside your computer? The fans! So stop thinking that these are boring parts that nobody should care about and actually start caring about the quality of the fans that are inside your system. The Phanteks G360A PC case features a mesh front panel for ample airflow, room for full-length GPUs up to 400mm long, 360mm radiator support, and integrated DRGB lighting compatible with all motherboard RGB lighting controllers. To see the full list of specs and colors available, follow the link in the description below. So the Silent Wings Pro 4, in recent history, we did a video showing how BeQuiet had finally broken into the RGB game, and then they're like, enough of that. We're gonna come out with our next fan, which is the Silent Wings Pro 4, and it does not feature any RGB. So if you're one of those people that's like, screw RGB, then these are the fans for you. So they come in two different sizes, obviously a 120 and a 140. But interestingly enough, in terms of RPM, I believe these are 3,000 RPM. Yeah, the 120s are 3,000 RPM. And the 140s are 2,400 RPM. So these are gonna be very, very good fans in just about any situation that you can put them. Now, obviously you're gonna want these hooked up to some sort of a fan controller or a controlled fan header on your motherboard or something, because 3,000 RPM fans, although they have silent in the name, are still going to make some noise. We'll look at the fan in a second, but what accessories does it come with right here? So this is kind of new. These are some mounting screws. These are like little push-through pins. So basically these guys right here just push through the fan, and then it's got a little nubbin on the back that pops in there. So they're not actually screwed in. They're more or less just kind of held in there with these little, they're almost like a little plastic rivet kind of a deal. But we have these optimized corner pieces right here. And so you can change the corner of the fan mount depending on the use case. Now, I complained in some other reviews about round caged fans like this. This is actually their Silent Wings 3, not the Pro, but the Silent Wings 3, where if you have a rounded cage around the blade, I mean, that makes sense because that's where the blades are turning, right? It's just if you put them on a radiator or an AIO, then you get these gaps that don't seal up or even block off the airflow. Air is a fluid. It's going to take the path of least resistance. So what's gonna happen is you'll have some air splash out those particular corners. And I recently demonstrated that in another video. So what you get here are these different corner pieces that can be changed out depending on the use case that you're using this in. So if you're using a regular airflow, like in a case fan or something that has a lot of mesh, and you don't have a lot of resistance in front of or behind that fan, then you could use these different mounts right here, or if you're using them on a radiator, they have their optimized radiator corner pieces. So here's what the fan looks like, and pre-installed right now are what they call their radiator. That's actually a really nice cable, look at that, holy cow. That might be the nicest end connector I've ever seen for a fan right there. And that's not rubber on the end, that's plastic. And it's sleeved up under there. They're not really, this is actually really nice. Okay, anyway, I'm getting distracted. So right now they have their radiator optimized corner pieces installed out of the box. And you know what, you could mount this on your case just like this too. You don't have to run these other pieces. But they do supply these if you want to run the more rounded pieces on there. If you were gonna be running these on their particular air coolers and such, where you have to use the retention bracket system, the little like metal piece, then you would have to put these on there because the length of those is designed for, see how this is kind of centered, right? It's not as thick as the outside of the fan, whereas see how that obviously adds some, distance, probably about a good 10 millimeters, maybe 12 millimeters away from where it typically would be. So if you wanted to mount this onto, say, one of their cooling towers or whatever, then you would have to switch them out to these corner pieces right here. And you can even see, looking at them up close, they have the really small hole on there, which will work well with the push-through grommet or the little hook that's necessary for when you hook these on to their coolers. But anyway, I'm gonna leave this on the way that this is because I am a fan. I'm a fan of the square style because I think it just works everywhere. There's no reason to change that. But if we take a look at the blade design, you can see it's clearly optimized for both airflow and static pressure. Now they've got the ridges on there which is one of BeQuiet's kind of a trademark signature designs. That's designed to smooth out the air as it's being cut by the blade. It also helps with the focus direction on there, where these kind of like Ruffles ridges deal. I don't know what else to call them. They remind me of like Ruffles potato chips. But anyway, they do a really good job at just smoothly directing the airflow in this kind of a Venturi design out of the center of the fan, giving as much directional airflow as possible, rather than this real wide conical fashion that you would typically see with a fan, because of the fact that as it's scooping the air, centrifugal force is pushing it to the outside and then out the side of the cage. So what these ridges do is they help to keep the air evenly across the blade, so you get better static pressure, better airflow, and it actually helps quite a bit with the acoustics as well. No lighting on this at all. They are just matte black fans. In fact, they don't even have the orange on there. That was one of the things I always said, and I don't think I didn't get them to do this. It's just something I've always mentioned, is that the orange writing on there would be like the one thing that takes away from like a murdered out theme if you were going with like all black components, like a Batman build, or you just want all blacked out, murdered out style. The orange would sort of kill that, and it's on both sides on the older fan. But as you can see here, the BeQuiet, it's black, and on the back, the writing is white, but still, I mean, I could deal with this. But one thing I want to point out too is this cable right here, this is a paracord. So it means it's a lot more flexible. It means you don't have to deal with like the plastic. This is the plastic sleeving on here. PET, it's like a PET plastic, and it's it doesn't want to let you do what you want to do. It's going to do what it wants to do. But the paracord, as you can see, it's a lot more, you can route this a lot easier. Pretty ample length. But on the back, because it is a 3000 RPM fan, if you're not running any sort of a controlled fan header or cable or fan controller, it does have a 3-point toggle switch on here. So you've got a medium, a high speed, and an ultra high speed. So M, US, and UHS. And this gives you a different maximum RPM. Now the corresponding speeds with those, and these are max RPMs based on the position of the switch, is for medium, it's 1600 RPM, which is pretty standard. Anywhere between like 12 to 1600, usually it's more like 1400, 1500, but so you get a couple extra 100 RPM. 1600 RPM, 2500 RPM, which would be already fairly high speed, extreme. Like 2000 is kind of like where fans start to get pretty loud. So I'm interested to test this today to see how the acoustics are. And then the UHS is the 3000. But the 140 millimeter fans are gonna be, remember they're only, what are they, 2400 RPM on there? Yeah, 2400 RPM, so they'll be lower increments. And the reason why bigger fans like 140s, 180s, 200s have lower RPMs the bigger the fan goes, the hubs don't really get bigger on the motor, but the drag and the weight on the motor, the bigger the fan blades, that's a lot of mass to turn. But the bigger the blades, the higher the CFM. So you don't have to turn them really fast. But the bigger the blades, the lower the static pressure. So it's kind of like big engine, big torque versus small engine, high revving, high horsepower. So it's kind of like the same trade-off. Only the bigger fans move a lot more air at a lower RPM. So just wanted to kind of point that out. But you can see now why I say I like these corner units like this versus this if you're gonna use them on a radiator or AIO, because you don't have this gap now that air can escape out of. And you might think to yourself, how could air escape if it's being pushed down? Believe it or not, when you have the resistance of either a heatsink or a radiator, air finds a way. It absolutely finds a way, and then it will bounce back and you can feel it. It is very noticeable. But this is a pretty neat design. I don't think I've ever seen a fan manufacturer come out with this system that has these kind of a hybrid. It's awesome, I love it. Let's power it up. Let's see how it sounds. And we're gonna compare it to a Silent Wings 3. This is a 1500 RPM fan, non-switchable. So already you have adjustability in this fan. So this right here is a 3D printed 120 millimeter cone that matches on here. So this way we can actually force all of the air through my flow meter. For all you engineers out there, yes, I'm aware that there is no volume calculation. All we're comparing is one to the other. And I did some calculation based on the size of this duct and the air going in, but it's still not perfect, okay? And we'll start this one here. On the medium settings, we're going for acoustics first, then we'll hook it up to the little flow meter. That's really quiet. It's really quiet. It's like BeQuiet has this voodoo capability. I mean, the little cage parts even the design of these supports on the cage have aerodynamic properties to them to smooth out the airflow and help direct it. And smooth airflow means quiet. It's funny, it's like it's actually a little bit lower than the other one. That one's airflow optimized. This one's more of a hybrid, where this one is more about pressure and flow, which makes sense because of the amount of blades and the way they overlap. So I'm not surprised that at 1500 RPM, the airflow version of the fan creates a little bit more airflow. However, that fan can't do this. That's not the highest setting. So that got loud. At 2500 RPM, it became a lot more noticeable, but check this out. 127. Remember, this is relative to the other fan. It's not actual CFM. We're just comparing this volume calculation to that fan, okay? 129. Okay. Dude, that's pretty noisy. 200 maybe? No, 500 more RPM? Yeah, 150 seems about right.
Oh, wow.
150! This is just something interesting I bought. I wanted to start using on fan reviews like this. I'm just gonna leave the calculation where it is and always compare it with other fans. If I go back now, I mean, for small form factor, people that are just like, I need all the airflow sans the noise, like I don't care about the noise, I can see why you would want the 2500 and the 3000. It's 3.6 watts at 0.3 amps. That's pretty standard. Hey, I'm probably pretty close to dialed in on my calculations because it says 83.9 CFM and 142.5 CFM on the high settings. I'm pretty close because I spent a lot of time mathing and then I hurt my head and I just gave up to where it's at. But if I'm only off by a little bit because I based it off this, now try calculating cones. That's not easy, right? It's not.
No, I know.
So
That's why I'm laughing.
I think I did a pretty good job. We're close enough. It's a good fan. It comes with the pieces that are designed for a different use case. You've got different mounting options. They're anti-vibration. You've got speed control. Now, if you were going to hook this up to a fan controller, you could leave it on the max settings, max switch, and then control the voltage going to it via your fan controller or your motherboard header or whatever. Let's go ahead and do a quick noise test of the 140. I can't do the flow meter test with this because this is a 120. And I can't just print a 141 because then the calculations are off. And I already said, I hurt my brain trying to figure out cone calculations. So it's 1100, 1900, and 2400. So that's 1100 RPM. So we should be a pretty big noise jump to 1900, I would assume. Yeah, you can hear that one. It's way more air than I think you would need, but still, why not if it can go? And then 2400. That's a lot of air, oh my God. It's not even sealed up. 97 to 165.5 CFM depending on the, and air pressure, 3.64 millimeters of H2O. That's a lot, even for a 140. Life expectancy on both of these at 25C is 300,000 hours. We all know nothing sucks more than I was like, why is it still spinning? Nothing sucks more than having an expensive fan in your case and then you start getting the and that's just bearings wearing out. All right guys, thanks for watching. They're really pretty. They're all black. They are quiet. They move a ton of airflow. Switchable fan speed on the back of the fan itself, which is nice, except for if you're going like push on a rad, you won't be able to access them. So that's why I recommend putting them in the highest setting and then running a fan controller or something on there because obviously at the lower speeds, they're not gonna get fan hub clicking or buzzing. The motor can clearly handle, the three-phase motor, obviously 3 phases here, can handle the lower input voltage without having to then sit there and listen to buzzing and clicking, which motors make when they're on the edge of being able to operate. I need to get myself an actual fan controller so I can start testing startup voltage and what they sound like right at the startup voltage. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Check out the link down below. If you guys are interested in some Silent Wings Pro 4s for yourself, I would think that something like this would be awesome to load up in like that EVGA E1 build that we're working on. I'm really torn on whether or not I want lights in that build or not. If you don't want lights and you want performance, these are the ones to look at. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.